Okay, so the first thing which we will see is how to create a single character. So the character A or B or 1 or 2, these values can be stored in a single character. So we'll create a variable. So to create a variable, we will say data or just data, and we can say, okay, single char. So that is the name of the variable which we are creating. And I will say type of character, which stand for C. C is the data type for character, and I can give it a length. So the length I will give it as a 1. Now it suggests whenever you are writing something, then the Eclipse automatically suggests, and if it doesn't suggest, then you can press Control space and it will suggest more things for you. So you can see the length is what I need. Then Control space is the way to make the Eclipse give the suggestion. So auto completion of the code is something which is very helpful. You don't have to remember the spellings for each of the keywords. Okay, so single character is the name of the variable and the type is C. I will give it a length 3, and I can also give it a value here. So the value is of nature of character, so it will come inside single quotes. So I can say hi, and I will say to you. Now what you will see is that when I print this particular character in my out.write or using the out.write, then it will print in the console. So it will basically overwrite or write again in the console. So it's better to clear it. And what I will do now is save the code, activate, and run. I'm using the shortcut key this time. And what you see here is I don't have the hi U printed. I only have the hi printed, and I can see a warning here. Now you can see that ABAP code gives you warning when it sees that some kind of error is coming in the future. Then you have to see the warning here. The warning says that this is a fixed length. You are actually assigning length of the value which is far bigger than that. So if I just say here hi 1, which is of 3 character, then the warning disappears. And even if I try to print it, then it can only print, or it can only contain 3 character, because that is the length which is given to the single char variable. So this is character. I'm just writing hi, and now I can also assign certain values which are different from what the value is given here. Then I can also say by, and here I will see that I have to first close the statement here with a full stop, and then let me activate, and here run the code, and you can see by is getting printed in the console. So you can actually change the value of the variable as well. And this is the way to create a data type or create a variable. And if you want to create multiple variable, for example, let me create one more variable, then what you have to do is you have to give a colon after the data, and at the end of the first variable I have a comma, and I go to the second line and I say okay, name, and if I say this is of type character and length is maybe 10, and the value which I have is Ajay. Okay, then I have to basically add full stop to close the data declaration here. So I have now 2 variables, and the first one ends with a comma and the second one ends with a full stop, because there is no further data or the variable declaration. And I can basically also print this name with out.write, and let me print this and activate, and here I'm going to run the code Ajay. So the single char is printing by, and the name is Ajay is getting also printed. Now it can also happen that you are using some of the new language syntax, and when you use the new language syntax with the ABAP 7.4, what you will find is that you have the data keyword, and I can create a variable friend's name, and I can assign certain value directly, say Alex, and it will basically give this friend's name, or just short for FRD, friend name. So the friend name is Alex, then the friend name will automatically be declared, and the initial value of the friend name will be automatically assigned there within this particular variable. So if I try to print this friend name, then I can just also say out.write, and here I will say friend name, and let me activate the code here and run the code. And here you can see that the third friend name variable is getting printed as a Alex. So first we have the by, then Ajay, and Alex. So one more thing I would like to add here is, if you want to see the data types, what data types they are, then I can also just add a debugging point in the line number 29 by double clicking here. So you can see a small blue dot, and that is that this particular code is having a breakpoint at the line number 29. And what I will do is I will go to the breakpoint perspective here, or the debugging perspective here in this small green color bug. By clicking that, then I'm now in the debugging perspective, where all the debugging related views are shown to me. Now I will go here to this icon where I can see add exception, add statement breaking point, add message. All these options are coming, which is like an Eclipse breakpoint kind of icon. Here I have to do a refresh breakpoint activation. Now why I'm doing that? Because sometimes when you run the code with just the breakpoints, then you will find that your debugging will not stop at that particular point. Then in those scenarios, you have to come to the breakpoint screen and refresh the breakpoint activation. So that is a common issue which we have seen. So we have addressed that now. Now let me clear the console, and let me just run this code. So the breakpoint will be the place where our code will stop. Now you can see that we are in a state where the code has been halted. And what we will do now is go to the variable view here, and here I want to see or inspect the friend variable, the single char variable, and the name variable. So you can see here the technical type, what that type that particular variable belong to. You can see that the name is of char, length 10. The single char, which we created first, is of length 3. And the friend name is of length 4, but we don't have given any length to the friend name. So that is something which you will find is whenever we are creating the character type with the data keyword or the new data syntax of 7.4, then it will take the length of the initialized value. And let me stop this debugging point, and if later on I try to add certain value here. So for example, if I try to say, okay, Alex is the 4 character, then let me change this to say Alex is good. Then what do you think this value will be if I just print it? So if I want to comment this 2 line, then I can just select this and source code, and I will use this toggle comment, and the shortcut key is Command 7. For Windows, you can see what shortcut key shows here, then you can use that, because in future we will use the shortcut key. So let me comment this 2 line here, and I will activate the code. And for now I just want to print the friend name. So let me run this code, And you can see that it just prints Alex. It doesn't print Alex is good, because the length of the friend name is the initial length of the value which we have assigned, which is just the 4 character. So that you have to be careful that the length here is fixed once you use the data keyword and you are assigning a character value or character value towards it. Okay, then there is one more very important thing, which is with the 7.5 you will find. So with the 7.5 language changes, all the code or the ABAP code is of Unicode nature. So all the code here is Unicode with ABAP 7.5. Previously it was UTF, then in ABAP 7.5 all the code became Unicode. So all this code are of Unicode. So I can basically use a Unicode smiley here. So if I take a smiley Unicode, let me Google that, and let me just add that to Alex, and let me, I think it's printing that. Let me comment all these things. I'm using the shortcut key now of Command 7. Based on your OS operating system, you can see what is the shortcut key there. Let me activate the code. And if I print the friend name where I have the Alex and there's a smiley face, then what will get printed? Will I get the smiley in the console? Let me try that. So let me run the code with F9, and you can see that you also get a smiley face printed in the console. So that is a major difference, or that is a major feature you will see in the 7.5, that it allows you to have Unicode related characters in the code, because all the code are stored as a Unicode format. Okay, so that is the first part of our basic programming, which is character. Now in the next section, we will see numeric and date and time and the hexadecimal, which are of fixed length nature data type. So let's catch up in the next section to see that. Hello and welcome back. In this section, we will see strings. Now, when we talk about strings, strings are variable length character. So you don't know in a variable length character how many characters a string can have. So for example, if I try to create a string, so let's create my name or name variable, and the type here is of string, and I can initialize it with a value. So let me give a value of my name is cat, and the name is cat. Then this name variable is now a variable length variable, so I can give any length or character to it. Now it will not exceed obviously the limit of the string, or there is a upper limit of the string. So we will see in a moment what is the maximum number of characters the name can have, but beyond or before that it can have that length. So here the name is cat. Now if I try to print this, so there is no surprises here. We will just get the name printed as cat, and we can all guess the name is cat will be printed. It's pretty clear. Now I can also change this name to my name is cat, as this is a variable length string or variable length variable. Then again, if I try to print the name, it should also give me my name is cat and not cut any part in between, because it was not able to store that. So in case of string, the name here will be of variable length, which will adjust itself. So you can see that if I try to print, then assigning the value my name is cat again to the name, you have the same effect. The name actually contains now my name is cat value. Okay, now there are other ways also to create strings. So I can have a name1 variable and type, I will say string, and value I can use this time backticks. I can say my name is dog, and I can say here dog. So the name1 is dog, and I can also use one more way where I can use the templating operator, and the templating operator looks like pipe keys in the keyboard, or it is the pipe keys in the keyboard. If you use that terminology, then you can use that. And when you are using pipe, then you have to use the newer way of data declaration. So what you can do is you can basically use data, and you don't have to specify that it is of string type. When you use the pipe operator to assign value to it, it will automatically give it a string type. So if I say elephant, so let me align the code just to get the aesthetic right. Then we have the name1 and name2. So they all are of string type. Now if I use here single quote, so let me try to use single quote and just print this. So let me try to print all of this, and first we will try to print it, then we will see in the console that what is the type for all these variables. Now let me just out.write 3. Okay, so we have the name, name1, name2, name3, all those in the out.write. Clear everything, activate the code, and run the code. So you can see that the name is cat, then the name1 is dog, the name2 is elephant, and name3 is also elephant, getting printed in the console as we expect it to be. But if I try to add a debugging point and try to go to the debugging perspective, and let me refresh the breakpoint here and run the code, then when we inspect what kind these variables are, the name, let me double click to the name to make it appear in the variable, and you can see it is of type string, and the name1 and the name2 and the name3, if I add all these three, then you can see that the name is string, name1 is string, name2 is string, but the name3 is of character of fixed length 8. So that is what the difference here is, that when we are using the data shorthand notation or the keyword here, and we are using quotes, then it will basically give us a character and not a string. And if you want to use a string or want to create a string, then we have to use the templating operator. Now, the more features about the templating operator we will see now in a moment. Now, that is the one point which we have made sure that we get right. That is different way to create strings. So the way to calculate the length of the story string is to use something called the str length, which is string length operator. Okay, so when you use the string length, then you have to add a space, and after the bracket and before the bracket or the round bracket closes, and that is the string length. So if I use a string length here, let me use the string length in the story variable and also with the name variable, because name is 3. So if it is printing 3, that means that this is proper. And you can see that the name is 3 length and the story is 60 length. So this is the way to find the string length. Okay, so we have seen so far the string length. Now let's also discuss some of the more functions we have for the string. Now I will remove all the other variables just to keep things simple, and let me use the cat here, and I'm using or going to use the string template. So cat And the other functions which I will show you, the first is string length, and the second is the number of character or number of char, and here we have the name. And in case of this number of characters, and let me also use the data new keywords or new way of creating the string. And here I have the cat string, and the first is the string length, and the string length we already seen that will give us 3 characters. Or let me just activate this, clear the console and run the code. So we have the string length as 3 and the number of character also as 3. Now if I add a space at the end, then you will see that the number of character will be changed. So if I try to activate the code and run the code, then you can see that the number of character is still 3, which is printed second, but the string length is 4, because in the string length function, if it is applied to a string, it will also include the trailing spaces. Now in case if it is a string, now in case of number of character, the trailing spaces are not calculated. And also similar to this, there is a common function called the char length function. Now the char length will only consider the first character. If I take the smiley here and add it to the cat, and let me add the smiley to the cat, and I will basically put it in a name 1, and the name is without the smiley and the name is with the smiley. And if you just focus on the char length, then it will just consider the first character. If the first character can be represented with single Unicode, then it will give 1, and if it requires the Unicode specifically just to represent itself, then it will give 2, like this smiley face here. So let me basically clear the console here and activate the code and run the code. So in the char length, you can see that in the first case, we have the C, which can be represented by single Unicode character. Then we have the value as 1 in the line number 25. And in line number 26, we have the value 2, because the smiley need a surrogate pair of Unicode to represent itself. Now that is done. Now one more interesting function which you will find is what is the maximum value which this particular name variable can hold, or what is the maximum number of string characters which this name variable can hold. So for that, we will be using a function called dbmax length, and then here we will say name. So let me also out.write this and save this, activate the code, clean and run. And you can see that this is a very big number. So you can see this is about 536,870,912. So this is quite a big number of characters we can have in this string variable. Okay, I hope that we got an idea about some of the basic functions which we will be using with string, like string length, the number of character it have, string length or the dbmax length, and number of character functionality, just to tell us that how many character it have without the trailing spaces. So these are some of the basic functionalities. Now let's move towards some of the more important function which we will use in day-to-day operations of string, like converting to uppercase, replacing and finding in the string in the next section. So let's catch up in the next section to continue our discussion on strings.